With a recent care package buff that significantly increased his potential damage output in games, and an amazing all-rounded kit for incredible playmaking potential, Jarvan's regained his spot as one of the scariest junglers in the current metagame. Here's a quick breakdown of how we'd be going over the video. I'll touch on general concepts of Jarvan's purpose as a champion and what success looks like in games that you are doing well on him. We'll then discuss different components of his kit and how we can work better to optimize each one of these. This includes going over different jungle matchups, rune optimizations, ability maxing your build, pathing, how to play out ganks, and how to play out each phase of the game. But first, if you haven't yet, please subscribe for more content like this, but let's get going. Although there's a few decent options for Jarvan to take in the jungle, the rune set you'll be running in most games will be centered around Conqueror, your keystone of choice. Jarvan's melee nature and ability to get off a lot of auto attacks in relatively quick succession means that he'll be able to derive a lot of value from this rune, accessing its full potential in a relatively short period of time. By nature, Jarvan's full forward playstyle also supplements this and allows him to really take good advantage of this ability. The main other decent option I've seen for jungle J4 is Electrocute/Dark Harvest, which could be decent if you're going for the full ego lethality one-tap build, but I definitely say that Conqueror is the most consistent rune you can go for in most games. For the Conqueror page, you can typically pair these runes with a standard Triumph, Legend Alacrity, and Coup de Grace combo for good kill potential, with either a Domination or Inspiration tree to wrap it up. Most players opt for Inspiration in order to access Cosmic Insight for the reduced smite cooldown and free boots combo, whereas the Sudden Impact Relentless Hunter combo allows for a much more snowbally playstyle to come out of Jarvan instead. In this case, I really do think that both options are pretty decent and enable Jarvan to slightly tech his capabilities based on what he needs, but I think that the choice is yours. Moving on to Jarvan's matchups, and although it is a bit of a toss-up depending on the metagame and the playstyle of the enemy jungle champion, there's good reason for why Jarvan is an extremely powerful blind pick jungler in the current game state. He has this awesome ability to neutralize the downsides of most of his matchups due to his insanely flexible and high utility kit. There are still some champions like Rek'Sai that do really make his life quite difficult in the jungle, but by and large, Jarvan's strength is being able to contribute and be relevant in almost any game without worrying about getting hard countered. Jarvan's kit is very centered around the flag and drag combo that he has, so the main counters he has are champions that can either play around this using their own kits or actually want him to go in so that he can get gapped. Think the aforementioned Rek'Sai, or champions like Gragas, Kindred, Karthus, Poppy. All of these champs have their own answers to Jarvan, and not being able to use these abilities that literally define his kit means that it's very hard for Jarvan to get anything going in the game. The key to Jarvan being able to play around these matchups is to have the right awareness of the enemy champions and to alter the way he uses his combo in order to gain another advantage. It's an extremely flexible and rewarding concept to master, and this is something that will separate the good Jarvans from the great ones. Mastering Jarvan's combos is not really about having a high level of mechanical proficiency. Rather, it's more so about understanding which combo or which order of abilities is the most appropriate in a given situation, and it's revolving your fights around this understanding. For example, Jarvan's normal combo is pretty much as basic as it gets for a standard combo on a champion, just holding your mouse to where you want to go and pressing E and Q. Pretty easy stuff, right? We can kind of expand on this to get different variations of the combo for what you need. For example, squeezing in your W to get the slow off before popping your flag and drag combo makes it easier to hit the latter portion. Reversing the combo and going QE is actually also really helpful because it allows you to access the damage of your abilities without actually having to send Jarvan over. It's great for situations where you're covering lanes and are doing light trades against enemy laners, or need to clear waves or camps without having to move. Another classic combo that a lot of players are aware about is the EQ Flash combo, where it allows Jarvan to actually manipulate his knockup radius to take enemies off guard. It's a really cool combo when it works, and it can be a very high impact playmaking tool when used in the right hands. The main trade-off to keep in mind when using it is that it actually results in Jarvan dealing no damage with the combo, which can be a make or break in certain situations. Committing two abilities as a jungler to essentially just secure a knockup is in reality not that impactful in most situations. If you commit to the EQ Flash combo, you have to really ensure that it's going to be a really high impact play, or else you're just going to ask to gap yourself. Having strong mastery of your champions and what trade-offs they need to make to enable their plays will be key to understanding which combo is correct in the right situation. Itemization on Jarvan is quite similar to that of a lot of other bruiser champions in the meta right now, with just a few interesting exceptions here and there to provide for some opportunities to take the game into his own hands. With that in mind, his current playstyle will heavily revolve around using Gore Drinker as his baseline mythic item. Its high sustainability and high value promotes the kind of Chad playstyle that Jarvan loves to make use of, and is generally a really good fit for what he wants to bring to the table. With Gordonker as the core, it also brings about the items that generally go well with it, so think of things like Scariest Gauge and Black Cleaver as really good follow-up items. Jarvan does have the luxury of having a fairly general kit, meaning that he can pivot pretty well depending on what role on a team he needs to serve. You need him to be more tanky? No problem, he can itemize against that. Team lacking damage? Say no more. Armor pen items coming right up. Building on Jarvan is honestly a pretty fluid process, and you can build a whole slew of different items based on what you think is best. The most popular tech choices are things like Guardian Angel for its revive mechanic, Chempunk Chainsword for the great stat profile and heal cut, or even things like Serpent's Fang or Edge of Night in certain situations. The choice is yours, and as long as you meet the minimum baselines of both damage and sustainability, you've got a great baseline going. Pathing on Jarvan is probably one of his funkiest aspects, but not in a bad way. His kit allows him to actually get an incredible amount of value out of the early committal ganks thanks to the power of his EQ combo, but he still has the right amount of wave clear to benefit from slower paced, higher tempo clear styles. No matter where you clear, as long as you're pathing such that you're in the right place at the right time for a fight, that's the main thing that's going to matter. As with most junglers in the game, you generally want to path towards the lane you want to play for. The lane you want to play for in most cases is the one on your team with a winning matchup in your early clears, and generally the one that requires the most attention in later points in the game. The way you get there will be dependent on how you think those lanes are going to go. If you're pathing top and you think the lane will explode by the time Crab spawns, you can opt for a 3 camp clear so that you can impact that lane as soon as possible. This would be a buff grump buff clear. In contrast, in a matchup where it's going to be pretty slow in the first few minutes, feel free to slow it down, take an extra point into your queue in order to speed up your clear speed, and try to get off a high value 6 camp clear. Feel free to also skip camps and adjust depending on the situation so that you can provide contributions to skirmishes where necessary. Ganking on Jarvan will be an application of knowledge of the combos we talked about earlier, as well as having the right game sense for knowing which one is going to be appropriate in the right scenario. As with any jungler, you should always hold your gap closing ability for when the enemy burns their own escape and mobility tools, so you can attempt to land a higher percentage flag and drag combo. Assuming you start behind the enemy in your gank, start off with using your W to proc the slow, pressuring the enemy with your auto attacks, and then keeping up the chase with your EQ combo when the enemy tries to get away. Sometimes if you want to get faster pacing, you can lead with EQ to start off your gank, but you need to make sure you're making the right judgment call here and that the enemy won't get away. When you get your ultimate, this adds the option to start off your gank with ulti, and then again using your EQ combo to follow suit. Jarvan's champion identity when it comes to team fighting is actually relatively flexible depending on what the team needs, which is why he's such a strong jungler to blind. A universally useful kit, combined with the ability to play forward or backwards, means that the dedicated Jarvan players will be able to adapt their playstyle accordingly. In most situations, however, it's ideal that Jarvan serves as the primary backline engage for your team, as his high mobility and high damage allow him to really set the pace of the fights, and his insane ability to playmake makes it both really satisfying and rewarding to catch the enemy off guard. Your main purpose is to delete the enemy squishies in the back and then to survive after you've done so. You want to drive fear into the enemy AD carry and other squishy targets, and by maintaining strong discipline on your target selection will net you the profits in their juicy gold bounties. In situations where you find that it's better, you can instead use Jarvan as a decent peel champion as well. As good as his tools are for engaging and getting fights going, Jarvan's also amazing at pacing his fights for a strong counter engage and protect his most valuable team members. His ultimate creates a ton of space for the rest of his team thanks to its soft CC, and many times it's more than enough to buy enough time for your team to capitalize on. So there you have it. Jarvan's versatile and high impact kit make him an excellent choice for pretty much any situation, and is truly a jungler that can do a little bit of everything. I think he's in a really good spot right now, and I hope this video has done just a little bit to help you succeed on him on your own games as well. That's all from me though, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay fresh.